All right, let's get started. Looks like we've got a good group of people here. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're just going to give you a brief update of the Centrifuge chain where we are now, a bit of an update on our Amber launch, which is scheduled for Monday. So we'll just jump into things. I'll give it over to you, Philip Stanislaus, to give a bit of a overview on the timeline.
Cassidy. Hello, everyone. A short reminder on the testnets we have for Centrifuge. You might or might not be aware of this, but we have a ephemeral testnet which is called Fulvus. There's currently no external validators involved. It is used for all our internal tests, and it's stateless, or it doesn't have any persisted state, so it's spun up for testing only. Then there's Flint, which is currently running. Flint we had to restart it a couple of times. We're on Flint CC2 right now, chain candidate 2. But it is feature complete, and we are launching Amber, the next testnet, on Monday, as Cassidy mentioned. The idea of Amber is that it should be as close as possible to mainnet. So the Genesis file, the addresses, the invalid all that will be fairly similar to what we expect on mainnet. And we will have an audit done on Amber. So since everything should be as much or as similar as possible to mainnet, it would be great if also the validator set that is on mainnet is the same as on Amber. So we're inviting everyone here, and we would encourage you to join us on this journey during the audit in preparation for mainnet. Maybe you can go to the next slide, Cassidy. So Flint CC2 is live. We have 12 nodes right now running the network. Flint CC2 was mainly done because we removed a couple of features and reached feature completeness between CC1 and CC2. Most notably, we removed the sudo module, which allowed a root account to change the runtime and do other actions we didn't want in a decentralized testnet. So we have a council now, and actually, Cassidy, you could go to the next slide, please. So there was also the first on-chain governance action, which you might have seen. So we started Flint with 5 validators only. And within the first 2 days, we used governance on-chain to increase the number of validators to 20. Lots of learnings for us in that process, but it's great that it works as expected. Also, Flint is running stable since about 8 days. So we didn't see the issues we had with Flint CC1, mainly that validators were lagging behind and block production stopped, or they didn't catch up anymore with the high resource usage. So that stopped. Also, other updates are that the faucet is live now. In the next steps screen that will come a bit later in this presentation, there's a link to the faucet. So feel free to use that or send it around to give people Flint radial tokens, FRAD. And the big question is what will change for Amber? Not much, it's mainly the Genesis. And for mainnet also, we don't want a lot of changes. We mainly want to have additional tooling around, like PolkaScan, for example, which gives us an index of the history of block production and events and all that, and transactions. And of course, there will also be a faucet for Amber and also for mainnet. Yeah, that's the upgrade on the timeline and where we stand today. Any questions regarding these topics? I take that as a no and hand it back to you, Cassidy.
Great, thank you, Philip. So I'm just going to go over our Validator program to start, and a little bit of review of the economics for, I guess, for those of you who've heard it before, just a refresher, or an introduction if you are just joining us for the first time. So we are running a Validator program. What that means is that the members that we admit to this Validator program will receive upwards of 30,000 radio tokens from our Centrifuge Network Foundation. And this is just to get set up and to be able to start validating on mainnet. So of course, the faucets will be set up for our test nets, but this is to get you set up and started once we launch our mainnet end of Q1, as it's anticipated. But in addition to this, we would also give you priority support for any of your specific technical needs. And you would have a direct connection with our foundation. And what that means, I guess, is that we would support you as much as we can to get one of the slots to validate on mainnet. Of course, as this is an open network, we don't want to guarantee that you would have one of the slots to validate on mainnet, but just that we would support you as much as we can in that. So this first batch in our validator program will have 10 slots available for 10 different validator entities, and we'll select new participants on an ongoing basis. In order to be eligible for this program, we'd like you to run a validator on our Flint and Amber testnets, as well as to run a validator on mainnet. And because we will sign a legal contract with you, we'd like for you to have a legal entity to contract with, or we would need you to have a legal entity to contract with. And just a clarification here, the Amber testnet is launching on Monday, but this is not a time-sensitive eligibility. So this isn't a rush for you to go ahead and get a validator set up on Flint and Amber as soon as possible, but just that you are running a validator hopefully as soon as you can. And the number of tokens that you get might depend on how much you're actually participating, but it's also not, it would not make you ineligible for the program if you were to, say, for example, start validating on Flint next week after Amber already goes live. And the reason why we're keeping this as the eligibility and why it's important is that Flint and Amber are going to continue running even after mainnet is live, and they're going to be persistent testnets. So we would like your participation in both our testnets as well as mainnet. In order to improve your chances and to be a part of this program, we'd love for you to, as those of you on the call, participate in these calls, provide feedback to us so that we can prove both our technology as well as our engagement and the experience that you have as a validator working with us. So that means if other teams are doing things that are really great, or things that you see that can be improved, we'd love to hear your feedback on that. And we'd also really appreciate if you would actively participate in the Centrifuge community. So that means blogging or tweeting about your experience with Centrifuge Chain, participating in our Slack channel, or even sharing your infrastructure layout and learnings back to the community. So just a refresher of the economics, why you would actually want to participate. So these economics, they're going to be similar to the way that they're set up in Polkadot. The block rewards are going to be evenly distributed among the nodes because this is a nominated proof of stake substrate-based chain. The block reward curve in Polkadot, it adjusts according to the percentage of the token supply that is staked. For us in the beginning, this window will likely be very minimal and potentially non-existent as we get set up and started. And so we'll have this gradual ramp up of our parameters. So the target percent that we want staked or bonded here, the number of nodes that we will have available to validate the chain, and the block reward curve will probably be parameters that we adjust as we move forward. A bit of an overview of Centrifuge for those of you potentially joining the first time or to get an update from our side of things. So we focus on global B2B spend, that is invoices, and that's the size of the issue that we're targeting. The fact that the average time to pay back an invoice is 60 days. And a lot of these businesses don't have access to financing for that entire global trade market. So this is the issue that we're targeting here at Centrifuge. What our stack looks like, we have a peer-to-peer layer for storing and exchanging business documents in a private, secure, and verifiable way. And we're building Centrifuge Chain to be the unalterable single source of truth for those business documents. We're using that to tokenize documents using NFTs. And we've built our product TinLake to then securitize those assets and give those assets access to financing, and specifically to the DeFi ecosystem. So this is a bit of an overview of how we imagine the Centrifuge global trade protocol. This is a slide that we went over the last time, but just an overview of how this actually looks. So, for example, a supplier, Laces Inc., might send an invoice to Shoes Inc. And mint a token that represents that invoice in order to get financing. So that token would be minted on the Centrifuge chain, and we're launching with a bridge to Ethereum to then be able to access the DeFi ecosystem. So we really imagine Centrifuge Chain as the gateway for real-world assets to the blockchain multiverse. So Centrifuge Chain is being built with Parity Substrate, and the reason for that is that we have a lot of these tools that come quote-unquote out of the box that we can work with and allow us to focus on the specific functionality that we want to achieve with Centrifuge. And it also makes it much easier for us to then eventually access the Ethereum ecosystem, the Polkadot ecosystem, and all of these other building blocks in the blockchain multiverse. Centrifuge and TinLake, our product to pool these assets, will work together to unlock value that has previously been inaccessible. So all of these, our focus is invoices, but this could be any type of asset, such as real estate or music royalties, that can then be tokenized, pooled, and use TinLake to then access the DeFi ecosystem. So we think that Centrifuge and TinLake together create a hub for on-chain finance. So Centrifuge TinLake is working together with not only crypto and startup originators, but also established asset originators. And we're also combining that with not only DeFi, but also traditional lenders as well. So a few examples of what we're actually working with here. So Centrifuge and Maker have partnered to actually bridge these assets that we're tokenizing into the DeFi ecosystem and give them greater access to funding. We've also partnered with Paperchain and New Silver. Paperchain tokenizes music royalties, so that artists can actually receive streaming revenue in near real time. And New Silver provides bridge loans, and together with Centrifuge TinLake, will provide self-service to almost real-time access to credit for real estate. A couple of other partners that we're working with: Dex Freight for logistics invoices and Future Finance for mortgages. And TinLake here really provides accessible but also competitive financing to solve the liquidity issues in both of these markets. So we really think that TinLake will be a value driver for Centrifuge Chain itself. Our plan is to move TinLake over to the Centrifuge Chain, and this enables scalability, performance, lower costs, but also our targeted use case is privacy for both the borrowers and the lenders, as well as an underwriting token for the governance of the fees, as well as the asset underwriting that will happen on Centrifuge Chain. So a look at where we are now. We've actually funded 5 different asset types together with Maker. That's with 280,000 of DAI that's financed. Maker is heavily evolved, and Centrifuge assets are on track to be the first real-world assets in multi-collateral DAI. We have gotten a 1.4 million euro grant to build and launch the centrifuge chain from Berlin and the EU. And we've also gotten Web3 Foundation grants, and bridge development is in progress that we launched together with a bridge to Ethereum. And the biggest thing that we'd like to highlight for you all on the call is that we are open to outside validators, which is you. So what we'd like to highlight as the next steps is our launch of Amber on Monday. So our launch is on track, and we would love for you to participate as an external validator. Because what is the point if we don't have others like you on board? And so we've got a few links here to our guide, if you haven't checked it out, to setting up a validator. And these are the guides for Flint, but they're also for Amber as well. You can join our validator channel on our public chat to reach out to us to get started. And you can also just jump on to our new public faucet that BlockX Labs has set up to get set up on either Flint and then once Amber launches for Amber as well. Philip Stanislaus, if you want to say a few words about the requirements for validating.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cassidy. So there's not a big difference between validating on Flint and on Amber. So the minimum hardware requirements are the same for now, 50 gigabytes of SSD storage, 2 CPUs, and 4 gigabytes of memory. The requirements will also most likely not change for mainnet, though of course the chain size will grow over time, and 50 gigabytes of storage is probably not enough over the long term, but we will give updated estimates and recommendations when it's closer to mainnet. Then FRAD and ARAD, that means Flint radial and Amber radial tokens. You can always get those for free from us for validating on the testnets. Please just reach out. And Cassidy, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. And of course, there's still the guide on how to set up your validator. It works perfectly well for Flint and for Amber. I will update the guide and we will announce as soon as Amber is launched, and you can bring up your validator in our public Slack in the Validators channel. The guide will be updated for that as well. Please keep in mind that this guide is only for running a local validator in a Docker container, and we would recommend you to check out resources, which are on the next slide, I believe, for setting up a production grade validator setup with Sentry nodes, with firewall, with load balancing and all that goodness. Next slide, please. Yeah, here are the resources. I think we can skip over them, but we will share this presentation after the call so you can check them out. And thank you a lot for your attention, and we welcome any questions now.
Thank you. I'm Daniel from HDI. I have a question for Cassidy, because we had a call last week about let's say, a contract we need to sign in order to receive these ARAs. We don't need it anymore because there was a fee of something like $5 to retrieve the amount to participate to this testnet. Is this still a requirement or not?
So if we accept you into the Validator program, then yes, we would be signing a contract with you. And that's why one of the eligibility requirements would be that you have this legal entity. And then, as you mentioned, yes, this isn't just going to be a gift of these 30,000 radial tokens or the number of tokens up to 30,000 that you would be getting as part of the Validator program. The contract would be actually a sale between us and you, but for a very minimal amount. So we will get back to you once you're part of the program on the exact value that would be, and we would be able to send you the contract individually as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Ilan from the Netherlands here. I asked my question also in the chat, but I don't think anybody's looking over that, so I'll just ask it. What kind of legal entity is needed?
So it would be, I mean, a legal entity that can sign a contract with us that's not based in the United States specifically.
Okay. And sorry, yeah, go ahead.
That can be a natural person, but we would do a basic KYC with this entity. Doesn't matter, if it's a natural person or a legal entity.
Okay. And I also saw a slide that TinLake was, because TinLake is based on Solidity, right? And I saw something that TinLake was also moving into Substrate. Are you guys like planning on building that in Substrate?
Yeah. So right now TinLake is live on Ethereum. And so yes, those contracts are in Solidity. But the plan is to then migrate TinLake over to Centrifuge Chain. And so then that would be in Substrate. That's correct.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just one more from me again. So how many like what, because it's like Centrifuge is only like useful if, like, for instance, like you have like real world assets moving, right? Like some of the examples you gave in the slides. So how many of these businesses are ready actually like to are at that point of like that they can actually like have customers or like give loans to real world customers or supply chain invoicing? Because I understand you need all the building blocks to be in the place in order to actually like make it happen. But maybe you have an insight about these companies, whether they're waiting for Centrifuge or Centrifuge is doing the first step.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a great question. We've seen a lot of interest on the asset side. So all of these partners that I listed, they all, you can check them out. DexFreight, Paperchain, Future Finance, New Silver. They've all got lots of customers that are looking for loans, looking to finance these assets. And actually, what we're really waiting for is the other side to catch up. So that's really the DeFi side of things. That's being able to bring these assets into multi-collateral DAI, which is something that we're really pushing for and is on track. So that should be coming in the coming months. But we're also working with traditional lenders to really push that side of things as well, and get even like hedge funds and banks on board to start financing these assets. So you're right, it really does take both sides, and we've got all the building blocks here. The assets are actually also there and really excited. So the next step is for DeFi to catch up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Will Centrifuge remain an independent chain or join the Polkadot shared security system?
That's also a good question. So I think the reason why we're already launching is because we've got all this interest here, right? We've got these assets that are ready to get financed, and we want to get going, and we don't want to wait for Polkadot to launch. And that's a big question mark. So it's of course something that we would consider going forward once they do launch. If it makes sense, then we would consider it. So it's not something that we're writing off. We're definitely interested in the Polkadot ecosystem, but for now we're launching our own standalone substrate chain.
Your slide indicated that one of the layers was securitization. And so will there be some form of identity and compliance in the Centrifuge base layer?
In the base layer, no. So the securitization is pooling these assets together, and that's done with our product TinLake. And so in order to be an admin for one of those pools, then yes, there is a KYC process and a legal process behind that. But for the base layer of Centrifuge Chain, we want this to be completely permissionless and open for anyone to join. And privacy is one of the main focuses that we have going forward with Centrifuge Chain. And it's one of the main reasons that we decided to build our own chain instead of just having this all exist on Ethereum, because we want to be able to target that specific use case.
So just to iterate here on this, there will be an identity assigned to an entity borrowing or lending money, but actually the process to manage it, that will happen, or will have to happen by an operator following a legal framework that is compliant with the jurisdiction the operator is operating in, like the US or the EU or whatever.
So essentially, the way I imagine this is, as a user, I can own Centrifuge assets issued on Centrifuge without identity. But if I'm one of these entities that's issuing these assets, I will need to comply to this some regulatory framework. And
it depends on the use case. So it really purely depends on the use case and the jurisdiction you operate in. So and if a single account on the Centrifuge chain needs to go through a KYC process or not, it's really strongly depending on the role of you're taking, if you're investing or borrowing, and also what the asset is about in jurisdiction this asset is actually offered. It has also exactly nothing to do with the technology here.
Yeah, just to add that in Centrifuge chain itself, there's no inherent requirement or way to KYC or do identities tying to single accounts. It's really then on the dApp layer, on the application layer, whatever Mark just said, however it's being built there, and whatever you're issuing, whatever kind of securities you're issuing, where they're being issued. But as a validator, you don't have to worry anything at all about those kind of things, because they're just not inherently baked in. So to say.
thank you.
Awesome. Well, I guess if there are no, oh, I see one more question. Oh, okay, just a comment. Awesome. So if there are no more questions, then we can go ahead and sign off. I'd love to thank all of you for joining. I'd also like to give a shout out for the validators that have already started validating on Flint. And so that would be, let's see if I can name you all, but definitely correct me if I miss you. So we've got State Capital, dApp Node, Yevgen, if I said your name right, and who else am I missing? Hyperion. Is that everyone?
Then that's also HDI, In-Chain Works, Moonlime, Shuttle One, Stakefish, and Staker Space. I think these are the names that I got that validated at some point on Flint or are currently validating.
So thank all of you for participating already, and really looking forward to more of you to join. And definitely reach out to us if you have any other follow-up questions, and hope to see you on Amber once we launch on Monday.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.